Under the provisions of the Constitution and laws of the student government, the President of the Senate shall preside over any meeting of the Senate. Therefore, pursuant to my authority as the President of the Senate, I hereby call the first meeting of the 69th session to order at 6:30 p.m. Under the provisions of the Senate bylaws, with the vacancy of the Clerk of the Senate, the central office is hereby appointed to serve as the acting Clerk of the Senate until the Clerk of the Senate is appointed. Under the provisions of student government, whenever an emeritus holder is present, the Senate stands to recognize them. Please stand and join me in welcoming Emeritus Senator Otten, Emeritus Chairperson Hansen, Emeritus Director Arens, and Emeritus Student Body President Wong. Moving on to the next item, notice of election results. The central office is recognized to deliver the notice of elections.
The notification of the Student Senate regarding the election results is required by the Elections Code. By our authority, we hereby certify that the general election for the 69th session of the Wichita State University Student Government Association was conducted in accordance with Association Chapter 10. The election was conducted via online ballot using Simply Voting, a contracted third-party vendor, from Monday, April 6th through Wednesday, April 8th. We attest that the count was produced correctly, matched manual tallies, and were conducted for any and all write-ins in compliance with Chapter 10. Therefore, be it resolved that the 2026 general election is now complete and the certified election results were presented to the Election Certification Board for accuracy and ratification. Signed, Lizzie England and Lauren Madison, SGA Elections Commission. Now, upon the notification from the Elections Commission by order of the Election Certification Board, under the laws of this association, we hereby ratify the 2026 general election results and hereby declare the transition period in full effect. We hereby direct and grant the central office with the authorities to initiate the formal transition process to the 69th session. It is so ordered. Signed, Jawin Wong, Matthew Fan, Gabriel Fonseca, Election Certification Board. Of the 52 Student Senate seats, 26 are considered elected, with 26 remaining vacant. The fall election will take place to fill those vacancies prior to fall break. End of report.
Under the provisions of the student government, whenever an emeritus holder is present, the Senate stands to recognize them. Please stand and join me in welcoming Emeritus Student Body President Hauer. Thank you. Next item is swearing in. Will the senators who were not present at the inauguration please stand if you are able? Okay. Please raise your right hand, and if you accept at the end, please respond with "I do." Do you hereby swear that you will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University, act in accordance with the Constitution of the student body, fulfill all duties and responsibilities of the office in which you are about to enter, and to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University? I do. Congratulations.
All right, at this time, go ahead and flip over your official oath, and if you'll go ahead and sign that, and then pass it to the person at the end of your aisle, and we'll come around and pick those up. And congratulations to you all.
Moving on to the next item, roll call. Clerk Fonseca.
When I call your name, please say here or present. Senator Runquist.
Here.
Senator Said.
Here.
Senator Taylor.
Here.
Senator Parker,
Here.
Senator Short,
Here.
Senator Winslow,
Present.
Senator Whalen,
Here.
Senator Barry,
Here.
Senator Bossely. I may have said your last name wrong, I apologize.
Here.
Senator Lee,
Hi.
Senator Vance,
Here.
Senator Bratka,
Here.
Senator Fawn,
Here.
Senator Moib,
Here.
Senator Hinojosa,
Here.
Senator Beam,
Here.
Senator Timms,
Here.
Senator Tariq,
Here.
Senator Bland,
Here.
Senator Rahman,
Here.
Senator Miller,
Here.
Senator Brown,
Here.
Senator Naylor,
Here.
Senator Mallard,
Here.
Senator Arteaga.
Here.
There are 25 members present.
Moving on to the next item, 3-minute floor speeches. Any senator may seek recognition to give a speech on the subject of their choice. 3-minute speeches are focused on specific topics. Senators may only hold the floor once during this period. Are there any senators seeking the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, public forum. Public forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate, limited to 3 minutes only. This is a time for the Senate to listen to what the community has to say and to that we offer our undivided respect and attention. I'd like to remind everyone that though we allow the speakers the privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not reflect the opinions of the association. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move into the next section, messages, presentations, introductions, and reports. We'll go into messages from the Office of the Student Body President. The clerk shall read.
Pursuant to the authority vested in me as president of the association by the Constitution and laws of the Wichita State University Student Government Association, I hereby direct and order the following. Executive Order 69001, rescinding formal appointments from the 68th session. Executive Order 69002, allocate funding for the use by the Treasurer for summer funding, and Executive Order 69003, designating the authority of the Office of the Student Advocates to the central office. These orders shall be filed with the Association's office, added to the record, and shall become effective upon filing and remain in force until rescinded by the President of the Association or following other procedures. These orders shall become executive law and special ordered to remain beyond the session. End of messages.
Next item, messages from the Finance Commission. There are none. Next item, report from the Executive Branch. And before we go into that, I will be delivering a few opening remarks. So, good evening, everyone. It is an honor to stand before you today. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to serve in this capacity, and I approach this role with a deep sense of responsibility. Everyone in this room represents not only a position, but a commitment to serve, to lead, and to uplift the voices of the students who entrusted us with this opportunity. I first want to make something abundantly clear. Every individual is in this room for a reason. You bring perspectives, experiences, and ideas that are essential to this work, and this body is stronger because of the people within it. While our work involves meetings, initiatives, and decisions, at its core, it is about the students we serve. It is about ensuring the students feel heard, supported, and represented. As we begin this session, I would like to share our hopes for the year ahead. President Island and I hope to foster a space that is thoughtful in its decisions, intentional in its actions, and grounded in a shared commitment to the students we serve. There will be moments this year when things feel uncertain, when progress feels slow, conversations are difficult, or the weight of responsibility becomes more apparent. In those moments, I encourage you to return to something simple, the reason that you became a senator, the experiences that led you here, or the ones that continue to keep you involved. Just as important is to remember who we are doing this work for, the students who may never step into this room, but who experience the impact of our decisions every day. In serving our community, it is also worth recognizing that every individual we encounter is living a life just as full and complex as our own. I invite you to take a moment, look to your left and to your right. These are the individuals you will work with, learn from, and rely on. And just like you, they are here for their own reasons. Because of that, I want to emphasize the importance of how we treat each other. Approach this work with kindness in the way you speak, in the way you listen, and in the way you show up for each other. I also want each of you to know that you are not in this space alone. I am here for you inside this room and outside of it. Whether it's helping you navigate your role, working through challenges, or simply providing support, I am committed to being a resource for you. This year, I hope we can foster a Senate rooted in community, grounded in transparency, and strengthened by resilience, so that we can continue to build a campus that is truly a place for all of us. I'm honored to serve alongside you, and I'm so excited for what's ahead. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Vice President Raju and I are actively in the process of conducting interviews for the Executive Cabinet and Finance Commission and hope to bring forward several appointments before the adjournment of the session for the Senate for the summer session. In addition, we've been meeting with university administration and outgoing leadership as a part of our transition process, with the primary focus on establishing priorities and aligning our goals for the 69th session. Vice President Raju was also able to attend Faculty Senate this past Monday, where she gathered information related to critical tenure review procedures for faculty members. Finally, and in conjunction with Interim Treasurer Bum, we have heard and voted on several petitions and action plans regarding fund transfers for student fee entities accounts. That concludes our report, and I will now stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Senator Fawn?
This may be a question for the central office, but can you speak on the veto that was sustained for SB-68-177?
Yeah, that was done by the former student body president and will be filed, and we'll report on that next week.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move into the next item, report from the Senate leadership. There are none. Next item is report from the central office.
No report.
Moving on to the next item.
Sorry, I did have one. I apologize. Earlier today, the central office notified the Sunflower as well as the public about a case pending before the Supreme Court. There was a case filed to request an appeal to the election results from a student organization, the Hispanic American Leadership Organization. The court this last night virtually took a vote to implement an emergency injunction on their elections until they can rule on the case. The Chief Justice and the Senior Associate Justice are currently processing that case. The court will meet on Monday for their normal, regularly scheduled conference to determine on how to take that case into the next steps. But we'll keep the Senate updated once the court has made a decision on that as well. That is now the end of my report.
Are there any questions? Senator Lee.
May I ask about who the affected parties are?
So we don't report on those until the court has taken their conference. They don't do that until Monday. So once they have that meeting, then that information will be released at that point. Yeah.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move into the next item, report on unfinished legislative initiatives and projects.
While Matthew or Senator Fawn is getting that set up, for those who, again, new, last session, the Senate and the Government Oversight Committee passed legislation that requires at the beginning of every new Senate session that the Speaker and Central Office produce a report of all the unfinished business or legislative initiatives or projects that were done by the previous Senate. And so his responsibility is to preside this report, so the former Speaker will be delivering that.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matthew Fawn, and I serve as the outgoing Speaker of the Senate for the 68th session. So today I'm here to present before you all our unfinished initiatives and legislation report. So for some of our newer senators, and as a review for some of our senators from last session, in the 68th session, SB-68-164 was passed and enacted in Article 1, Chapter 8, Section 6 in the bylaws, And it basically states that the Speaker of the Senate, in conjunction with the Central Office, compiles submitted unfinished legislation and initiatives that senators have worked on in that session. So in this session, within the past week or so, I've been collecting reports that senators submitted to be presented for tonight's meeting. So today I'm going to go over each of the items that were submitted, some additional items, and then I'll take questions at the end. So last session, after this legislation was formally signed, I sent a memo out as the Speaker requesting that senators submit descriptions of their individual or committee-led initiatives, including any draft legislation or proposals not formally introduced, that a description and the legislation be submitted via email to the Speaker of the Senate and the Central Office, and for each document to be submitted in a separate Word document as well. So today you'll see some initiatives that have just a description, some of them just have a draft legislation associated with it, and some of them have even more information like research that they've done as well. All of this PowerPoint is in the Teams in addition to all the Word document versions of the unfinished initiatives. So I'm not going to pull up the Word documents, but you can follow along as I go through this PowerPoint. So when senators submit legislation to me last session, I made a couple amendments to the submitted initiatives. The first thing is to conform with the new template for our Senate bills and association resolutions. So I adjusted the signature lines and text block for the legislation number, bill reads, and Senate vote, in addition of who a copy of the bill was sent to adjust to the new administration and new officials as well. So that way, if you wanted to pick up the legislation for this session, you don't have to change all the formatting. It has been changed for you already. Additionally, descriptions for the submitted initiatives within this PowerPoint, most of them were written by the senators that submitted their legislation, but if senators didn't submit it, I wrote the descriptions for it. So for submitted initiatives, we had 3 primary areas where we received submitted initiatives that people have been working on. So the first group was from Emeritus Engineering Senator Abby Otten. I have to thank her for creating this unfinished initiatives within our bylaws, but she has 4 primary unfinished initiatives that were submitted to me. So student health services to provide mental health notes for absences, an act to add a mandatory grading time estimation to syllabuses, an act to urge WSU to form multidisciplinary capstone courses, an act to add information about the fundamentals of engineering exams to the university webpage. The second group of unfinished initiatives came from former Health Professions Senator Guillermo Argumento. So he submitted an act to fund a HIPAA-compliant rideshare with student health services, and then I wrote the descriptions for an initiative started by former Fine Arts Senator Ariana Martinez with a resolution calling for accessibility improvement in the Dirksen Fine Arts Center. So I'm going to break down each of these unfinished initiatives. So the first one I'm going to break down is an act to add a mandatory grading time estimation to syllabuses. So the description that Senator Otten provided was, mental health is something continually advocated for at WSU. However, the main focus is prevention. If a student needs to miss class due to mental health reasons, there are fewer ways to assist students in having those conversations or reaching out to professors in a comfortable manner. This initiative will urge CAPS and student health services to provide written, whether it's paper or electronic, notes to professors when individuals need a mental health day. So for additional information, students are still expected to complete the work for the missed class, but it would prevent students from missing attendance points for mandatory attendance classes. Some courses with lab sections have strict rules and large penalties for missing, so this will assist in preventing further stress from either forcing a student to be in a class on a bad day or having them receive a 0 for that portion of the course.
Point of information.
We'll go to Senator Timms.
I apologize for interrupting. Was the title on the previous slide correct? Because it didn't match the content of the description.
I think it was the second item, possibly. I can double check with you later on. But continuing on with the initiatives, the second one on this slide at least is student health services to provide. Oh wait, no, I mixed them up. Yes, that's right. I switched them. So the grading time estimation to syllabus is switched with the student mental health notes for absences, so my apologies. But for syllabus, what should be a grading time for syllabus is oftentimes students are left unknowing of when professors can submit grades on homework, exams, projects. This ambiguity can be often be concerning for students in a difficult class to know where they stand in the course. This initiative will require each professor to add a line within their syllabus to provide a grade time estimation for students to know when their grades will be posted. So this legislation has been started and adjusted to the current session format, but the whereas section and more additional language will be needed to be added to this resolution. And then for the mental health one, this is also a resolution as well. The third one was an act to urge WSU to form a multidisciplinary capstone course. So multidisciplinary work happens every day in the workforce. It's heavily promoted to have more successful projects or prototypes. However, students are rarely given the opportunity to work in higher level courses with students of other majors. So, for example, senior capstone. Offering a opt-in multidisciplinary senior design or capstone course will allow students to better simulate the workforce after college by working with those of different skill sets and majors. So this legislation has also been started, but again, the whereas section and some more language has to be written as well. The last one from Senator Otten is an act to add information about the fundamentals of engineering exam to the university website. So the fundamentals of engineering exam has not been heavily promoted through WSU since AR-68-10 was passed to create a partnership with NCEES and WSU. She would like to continue promoting the FE exam to students by adding information about the exam to the university webpage for students to learn more about it. So most of the whereas legislation has been completed for this legislation, but now therefore there are a couple more items that need to be added. So now going to the initiative submitted by Senator Argumento, it is an act to fund a HIPAA-compliant rideshare with student health services. So this legislation is to fund a HIPAA-compliant Lyft ride in order to get students from student health services to a specialist doctor appointments in Wichita, such as cardiology or neurology, just to name a few. Senator Argumento has completed a lot of the preliminary research needed for this legislation. So things that need to be done is setting up a meeting with the student body president and student body treasurer to get approval for use of funds from the Special Projects Fund and to make final edits for this legislation. Former Senator Argumento is willing to collaborate and ensure this legislation gets done. The now therefore language has to be significantly amended, and whereas section needs to be amended. I've been working with Senator Argumento on this throughout last session, so I have some notes on things that have to be changed, especially the special projects and funding component side of things for this legislation. Additionally, some of the research that Senator Argumento did was he gathered how many referrals student health services makes to outside specialties in a fiscal year. He also gathered how many students that visit student health services are international students, and he also gathered how many students visit student health services for appointment. Throughout his legislative process, he met with the Director of Student Health Services, Heather Stafford, where he discussed the purpose of the legislation goals to come out of it. He also met with Dr. Gabriel Fonseca. He also met with Emeritus Chairperson Riley Hansen, and the then Director of Wellness and current Student Body President Anushka Raju, where we are listed as co-sponsors in unfinished initiatives as well. Finally, the last one is a resolution calling for accessibility improvement in the Dirksen Fine Arts Center. This was written by former Senator Martinez, and this legislation was aimed to address several student concerns regarding accessibility in the Dirksen Fine Arts Center. So it mostly highlights inaccessible pathways, unreliable elevator service, and potentially non-compliant doorway. So most of this legislation's whereas and now therefore sections have been completed, with final touches being required for the now therefore section. Additionally, I'm not quite sure where some of those conversations look like with the College of Fine Arts or the ADA coordinator regarding this legislation, if there were those conversations. Other senators that were on this legislation were Emeritus Chairperson Ping and also Senator Parker as well. But I will stand for any questions if anyone has any.
Are there any questions? Senator Mallard.
Have these been uploaded to the team so that we can look at them?
Yes, so if you go to the legislative packet, there is a folder titled Unfinished Initiatives of Legislation. So the PowerPoint should be in that folder, and then all the Word document versions for all the legislation I presented should be in there as well.
Are there any other questions? I'll go to Senator Tariq.
You might not be able to speak on this as much, but I was just wondering about the mental health section in terms of, as far as I know, student accommodation, if you bring them a diagnosis from the YMCA Health Center or even from your own doctor, then you are able to present it to your professors. So would that policy or proposed policy be an extension of that, or is that something else entirely?
I think it ties into that partially. I didn't write the legislation myself for that one, but I know in conversations that I had with Emeritus Senator Abby Otten, it kind of ties into the participation aspect of it as well, where sometimes students may give the professor a note, but sometimes the professor may not accept it if, I think that was Senator Otten's perspective for that legislation as well.
And I also think, to the senator's point, this would be given to whenever the new committee chair is selected for that area. All this will also be given to them, and so I imagine there'll be some continued conversations. None of what the senator is presenting is any legislative action is being taken on any of them. All of those will be referred to committees for them to address with those. So I think that will continue to come up as the Senate comes back again in the fall to address those topics too.
And I think another important component is for a lot of these pieces of legislation, they're association resolutions. So our Senate may pass them, but they're not binding. We're just urging the university or urging the department or urging their entity to take action for it. The only piece of legislation that would take effect if Senator Argumento's legislation to fund the LIFT initiative was funded by our student Senate, then that would take effect because that's a funding bill, so that's something we can control directly as well.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move into the next item. Section 4, consent agenda. Seeing no items, we'll move into the next item. Section 5, pending business. Seeing none, we'll move into the next item. Section 6, new business. Action 1, election of the Speaker of the Senate. Advisor Fonseca.
The Speaker of the Senate serves as the presiding officer of the Senate and head of the legislative branch at the pleasure of the Senate. The Speaker must be elected to the Senate and will serve in the line of succession to the office of the presidency. Soon, the President of the Senate will open the floor for nominations. If you would like to nominate a senator to the speakership or would like to self-nominate yourself, you'll raise your hand and you'll wait to be called on to state the nomination. Following the nomination, nominees must accept their nomination to be added to the ballot. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Advisor Fonseca. At this time, the nomination period is open. Are there any nominations? Senator Naylor.
I nominate Senator Fawn.
Senator Fawn, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? At this time, the nominees for Speaker are Senator Matthew Fawn. We will now begin the presentation of nominations by order of nomination. SGA Advisor Nolan is hereby appointed to serve as the doorkeeper. During the presentations, all other nominees will be excused from the chambers until called on. At this time, we will dismiss all other nominees from the chamber. Senator Fawn, you may approach, and the floor is now yours for 5 minutes to speak on your nomination.
Good evening, Senators. It's a great honor and privilege to be nominated as the only Speaker nominee for Speaker of the Student Senate. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Matthew Fawn, and I am an engineering senator, but I'm also a fourth year, going to my fifth year student that is majoring in mechanical engineering. I'm currently involved in 2 other organizations besides SGA. I am the outgoing president for the American Society of Mechanical Engineers and the Community Service Board. I'm also proud to say that I'm a proud Catholic. I value the wonderful community that we have here at WSU. I've been in SJ for all 4 years at Wichita State. I have extensive experience writing and editing bills and resolutions in addition to providing constructive feedback to senators regarding legislation. In my time in SJ, I have sponsored 56 and co-sponsored 257 pieces of legislation. In the 65th session, I serve in the Freshman Leadership Council and the Student Organizations Council. In the 66th session, I serve as an engineering commissioner and senator where I had the privilege of serving on the Government Oversight Committee, where I serve as the committee clerk. In the 67th session, I was elected suit by vice president with emeritus suit by President Kylie Hauer. And as vice president, I serve on the Finance Commission as the vice chair, the Association Hardship Fund Committee as the chair, the RC Board of Directors, and the Disability Accessibility Pride Task Force, among several other bodies. Last session, in the 68th session, I had the honor and privilege of serving as the Speaker of the Senate and as an engineering senator. As the Speaker, I led the Senate through a Senate committee restructure, oversaw changes within the Senate regarding diversity, empowerment, and inclusion due to the state's budget provisos, and several other operations adjustments. Additionally, a mandatory SJ events for senators were instituted, furthering collaboration participation across the branches. Senator recognition, such as Senator of the Month, was created. A legislation tracker and several workshops were also implemented to address and improve upon Senate retention and engagement. As the Speaker, I have 3 main priorities: Senate engagement, intentionality, and accessibility. For Senate engagement, I believe that it is paramount that Senate leadership has a personal connection with each and every senator here today. This means regular one-on-ones with both the Speaker and Standing Committee Chair with senators at a time that works best for senators, and having intentional workshops and Committee of the Whole sessions with the new Senate Affairs and Operations Committee. Additionally, I will continue and further expand senator recognition efforts through the Senator of the Month, but also through senator and legislation highlights in conjunction with the executive branch through our social media platforms. Furthermore, I will continue to require mandatory SJ events and have a renewed push to work closer with constituency groups, each college, and recognized student organizations. For intentionality, I wish to continue the goal that I had last session that I had in conjunction with the Long Win administration. I firmly believe that as a Senate, we must not only be communicative, but also thoughtful regarding our legislative processes, but also how we as a Senate leadership prepare items for Senate. If elected, I would reinstitute that 75% logged hour requirement for Senate leadership, that they must be in the SJ office or attending an SJ event, and that each chair works with their committees to develop a strategic plan and timeline in addition to developing goals and ideas with a general template that I created. Additionally, one of the biggest items of feedback that I received from last session and intend to address is developing a workshop and guide on how to write and analyze legislation. For accessibility, I believe that we must make the Senate space as accessible as possible for senators and all students. That means having clear communication regarding the agendas in an organized and timely manner. Additionally, another goal that I received was implementing a modified and more user-friendly legislation tracker that is easy for students to view and developed for an easy usage for senators for further collaboration. Additionally, I'm a firm advocate ensuring that Senate leadership is accommodating for senators with any disability. As someone with a chronic illness myself, with eosinophilic esophagitis and ADHD, I understand what it feels like not to feel welcome within this space, whether it's done intentionally or not. This SJ space and the SJ office is open to all students. I want all of you to feel comfortable and safe as senators. As a student leader, I believe in having an open growth mindset and being able to grow as a person, being able to challenge my own assumptions and biases, and take constructive criticism to adapt and adjust. Last session, when I made my speakership speech, I stated that I would abolish Committee of the Whole. Turns out I ended up not doing that, as it turned out to be a very unpopular opinion. I will expect much from our chairpersons and from all of you. This session, with the experience of being an outgoing speaker, we can hit the ground running to be the best version of the Senate. Let's continue to be an authentic, respectful, and collaborative Senate, and let's continue to make the Senate, as the Wong administration stated, for anyone and for everyone, and as the Island Raju administration stated, a place for all of us. Whether you or not you vote for me, I've got your back. Go Shocks. I'll save for any questions.
The floor is now open for 3 minutes for questions and answers by members of the Senate. Are there any questions? Senator Hinojosa?
Yeah, I have a pretty quick question. I've heard from many students that they want to see more of SGA in public spaces. I've heard great amount of feedback, especially from jersey handouts at baseball games or tailgates. Do you intend to expand those activities or reform them in any way?
Yeah, I think having that SJ collaboration with the student body and improving our outreach is something that we should always aim to achieving. I know last session I partnered with the executive branch to further the required event attendance, but also ensure that we're connecting with students as much as we can as well. One area that I would like to improve our Senate engagement for is connecting with our constituency groups, whether it's through creating different outreach programs with different group chats. I know a couple senators experimented with that, but also making our presence more known at different SJ events, such as the SJ tailgate that we have coming up, in addition to some of the SJ Connect events that the executive branch did last session as well. I know one thing that across the different sessions that we did was reach out to different RSOs as well. So I would like to foster more of that engagement and be a little bit more intentional about how we as a Senate reach out to student organizations. I can see some areas where we could improve upon by even reaching out to RSOs that fall under each senator constituency group. For example, since you're a health professions senator, I would like to connect you, Senator Hinojosa, to more health professions RSOs. Or for some engineering senators, I would like to connect them with the Engineering Council and some of the other engineering RSOs as well.
Are there any other questions? Senator Timms?
You just touched on it somewhat briefly, but one thing I hear a lot of concerns from students is that Senate doesn't do anything, and I would argue that we do. And so my question to you is, do you have any actionable, clear plans on how we can ensure that students maybe hear more of what we do, or that we do more so that students feel like we are being impactful?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. I agree with your assessment that I do think Senate does things, not only this session, and previous sessions as well. I think one area that we could do a little bit better upon is explaining to different students what legislation we pass and the impact that makes. We currently have an SJ newsletter where we put summaries of each of the legislation that we pass. But I think one thing that if I'm elected as speaker that I will try to emphasize a little bit more upon is working with the executive branch to promote some more of the legislation that we pass through our social media platforms. For example, when we had the initiative that was brought up by now current Vice President Anushka Raju with the Vision Care Initiative, I think for our Senate side, we as Senate can promote a little bit more within our constituency groups, but also for other initiatives, like for example, our Parking Advisory Board, we could promote some of the changes that we made for that, because I think students would be interested in learning more about what these different bodies do and what different resolutions we pass as well.
We have time for one more question. I'll go to Senator Mohib.
I was just wondering, what would you say your biggest challenge and another thing, your biggest lesson that you've grown from in the past session, in the 68th session as the Speaker of the Senate? Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, one thing that I had to learn the hard way is being able to delegate things. For me, I'm a little bit, can be a perfectionist at times, so throughout the session, I kind of learned how to hand over things to the team and to trust my team throughout the session. I know one thing that I struggled with a little bit as a speaker was having more of those structured committee of the whole workshops. So that's why last session, when we did our committee restructure, I formed the Senate Affairs and Operations Committee so that there's more senators looking at what workshop senators want to see, in addition to be a little bit more intentional about those processes as well. One of my favorite things about Senate leadership last session was definitely not only their leadership, but seeing everyone in those roles grow to where they feel confident running their meetings, they feel confident with their meeting minutes, where I can fully trust them with that process. I think another thing that I learned a lot more of is what our senators are looking for. So for workshops, we already have a couple pre-made workshops, but I think I learned a lot in a lot of people's learning styles and what they want to see. So one thing that I'm going to explore is potentially even recording some workshops over the summer where it's accessible to each senator, where there's captions to that. They can watch it at however much speed they want, because I know some people watch things 2 times speed, maybe even 3 times speed. So I want to be accommodating more to people's different learning styles and methods in communication as well.
The presentation of the nominees is now over. We will begin the debating portion of the election. At this time, all nominees for Speaker are dismissed until the debating period has ended. The debate period is now open. Does anyone wish to speak in debate? I'll go to Senator Said.
I'd like to speak in affirmation of appointing Senator Fawn. I previously served under him, and I found him to be an incredibly knowledgeable candidate. I feel like he's one of the most knowledgeable people in the room, and so I'm speaking in affirmation of electing him.
I'll go to Senator Naylor.
Yeah, so I'll be speaking in affirmation of Senator Fawn running for the speaker role. He has tremendous qualifications for this role, but he's also a very authentic person. And as a new senator coming in the middle of the session, last session, he was extremely helpful, extremely accessible to me with any of my questions. And I think having, some new faces in this area, he will provide you with the same guidance that he provided me. And he has a really, really positive outlook on this session that I think he'll carry forward. With some old legislation, old initiatives, and then some news that he's looking forward to.
I'll go to Senator Beam.
Hi, I'm also speaking in affirmation. I'm speaking as a person who was thrown into a chairperson role about halfway through, not halfway, but late into last session. And I just want to say Speaker Fawn was the most welcoming person through that. He welcomed me into Senate leadership, and he walked me through exactly what I needed to do, and because of that, I think he will be a great speaker next session.
Senator Winslow.
Yeah, I'm obviously going to be speaking in affirmation of electing Senator Fawn to the speaker role. One of the things I would like to point out, especially for our newer senators here, is that being appointed by him, he helped guide me through all the processes of writing legislation, reading legislation, making sure I knew everything about the Senate, so I wasn't just thrown into it. And I also want to point out that he's made several appointments of people that are sitting here, and I think that's going to be very pertinent with this session coming up, given the size of our current Senate. I just wanted to say that, to get that out there, that he is really good with especially new senators coming into this.
I'll go to Senator Timms.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking in support of Senator Fawn. There's one thing I'll say about Senator Fawn, and that is that he's married to Senate. He loves Senate so much. He is very committed to serving students and doing what's in the best interest of all students. And I've never seen someone who is juggling so much and still able to do so much, especially for Senate. And I think there has been some concern I've heard of, can he handle the workload? And we saw last session that he absolutely could, and he excelled in the role. And so I think not only is he competent, but he's driven, and I have nothing but confidence in him, and he has my full support.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in debate? I'll go to Senator Lee.
When can we elect him by unanimous consent?
We cannot do that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in debate? Senator Mahib.
I would like to affirm Senator Fawn because I think the reason I joined, one of the biggest reasons would be him. He encouraged me to join, and he's always been really nice, and he's genuinely one of the sweetest people I've met, and he's shown how impactful and amazing SGA is, and I wouldn't be a senator without him, and yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in debate? Seeing none, the debate on the nominee is now over. At this time, The nominee for speaker is invited back in to participate in the vote. Advisor Nolan, please invite the senator back into the chambers. The chair hereby appoints Advisor Nolan and Advisor Madison as the tellers. They will take the official tally of votes. Clerk Fonseca, please conduct a roll call.
When I say your name, please say the last name of the nominee you wish to cast your vote for, or you may abstain or pass. If you pass, we'll come back to you at the end of roll call. Senator Rehnquist.
Fawn.
Senator Said.
Fawn.
Sorry, are you guys ready? Okay, so we'll start over. Senator Rehnquist.
Fawn.
Senator Said.
Fawn.
Senator Taylor.
Fawn.
Senator Parker.
Fawn.
Senator Short.
Fawn.
Senator Winslow.
Fawn.
Senator Whalen.
Abstain.
Senator Barry.
Fawn.
Senator Bossely.
Fawn.
Senator Lee.
Fawn.
Senator Vance.
Fawn.
Senator Batka.
Fawn.
Senator Fahn.
Fawn.
Senator Moib.
Fawn.
Senator Hinojosa.
Fawn.
Senator Beam.
Fawn.
Senator Timms.
Fawn.
Senator Tariq.
Fawn.
Senator Bland.
Fawn.
Senator Rahman.
Fawn.
Senator Miller.
Fawn.
Senator Brown.
Fawn.
Senator Naylor.
Fawn.
Senator Mallard.
Fawn.
Senator Arteaga.
Fawn.
Clerk Fonseca, please call the roll for those who passed.
There are none.
Is there anyone who wishes to change their vote? Seeing none, the voting period is now over. The Senate shall recess for 5 minutes for the tellers to confirm their tallies. Senators, I'll please have you begin to take your seats. The Senate shall come back to order. It is the opinion of the chair that all members are present. Advisor Fonseca, we are ready for the results.
With the voting period now over and the tellers agree on their counts, the Speaker of the Senate shall be Senator Fawn. Congratulations.
Therefore, without objection, forced by the conclusion of the election, the Senate adopts Senate Resolution 68-001, election of the Speaker of the Senate without objection. Congratulations, Speaker-elect Fawn. Moving on to the next item, Section 6, New Business, the clerk will report.
Action on request to approve AR-69-001, an association resolution to extend the community garden to Wallace Hall.
Does the author wish to speak to the bill?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I was just having our advisor pull up an image of the resolution so that I can talk while we're doing it. But hello, everyone. My name is Josh Mallard, and today I am presenting extending the community garden to Wallace Hall. For those of you not aware, we have a community garden that is currently in front of the Radigan Student Center that was moved initially from Alberg Hall. The purpose of the community garden is to promote, fresh produce and healthy food here at Wichita State University to ensure that we have options in an area. For as many of you who may not be aware, but Wichita and a lot of its surrounding areas partake in food deserts, and so that means that we don't have as easily accessible options of fresh produce. In here, I also did put, I'm trying to find it. I wrote in here somewhere that does talk about the differences between supermarkets and convenience stores. And a lot of times those convenience stores like the Dollar General, which is right down the street of 17th, or not 17th, of 21st, they won't have as fresh a produce. So the proposed amendment is extending the community garden to Wallace Hall. The green beds equate to, I have it on here, 530 square meters of unused grow space. In the past, individuals of the community have planted stuff, including squashes, or watermelons and pumpkins, as well as tomatillas and tomatoes, without actual planning and full maintenance from a group of individuals. As well as in the past 5 years I've been here, I have never seen full plans of things being planted there. So, you go around campus, we have flowers, we have bushes, but the 4 beds in green have not been used. And then the beds that are in that pink red, I have it stated in the resolution as well that we would like those beds to be wildflowers, just to help with pollinators. But that way we can still have color instead of, a lot of plants is just green. So it'd be nice to have other flowers there to help with our local pollinators. Extending this garden as well will provide produce for students who are living on campus over the summer, as there will be less people here to provide support, as well as a lot of people carpool and buses, everything. So this just ensures that we have other options for the community garden. Some questions that will probably arise from the student body. We will not have to do too much maintenance in terms of paying to have stuff installed. For example, in 2 of the images below, you'll be able to see that there are already water, like spigots and hoses that are attached that are there for maintenance to already use water, as well as the soil is already good because people have already grown stuff in the past. So there'd be no need for us to be paying it. Also, who would have jurisdiction? Under the Community Garden website, it does state that the Community Garden is managed by the Student Government Association, Green Group, and Student Engagement and Belonging, as well as individuals from the community will help to maintain the garden. I do have other amendments that we will be proposing for next week, so those will be adjusted. I am going to be removing section 3 as it's not needed, as student government already maintains it, so we don't have to tell our own entity to provide information, as well as adjusting section 2 to urge the interactive map to be updated, not the interactive map will be or should be updated. The interactive map, we urge the interactive map to be updated, as well as the contact for that. So I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the author? I'll go to Senator Fawn.
Yeah, so I know we talked a little bit about this legislation and collaborating, but can you kind of speak on future plans to either reach out to facility services, the locker staff, in addition to the University Planning Committee on what this will look like from the university side of things?
Yeah, of course. So in the past, I have spoken on a few occasions with the directors of the Career Support Locker, Lauren and Caitlin, briefly, and I will be setting up another meeting this week to provide some more context for what we're working on. And then also, obviously in the process, making sure that maintenance is aware, but maintenance in the past has been very, very wanting of garden space, and we have worked with them to help build the community garden. This will not put too much of an impact on their space due to the fact that we're not actively pulling out flower beds or anything like that. I think you had another question that I just forgot. But I have been working on this for the past year plus. I've been working on several garden initiatives, as well as working with several community gardens, which are current students as well as past students and people who live at 17th and 2909 and a few other areas about the implementation of extended community garden space. Also, I have it stated in here when Neff Hall is torn down, this will help to extend the green space so that we're utilizing all of the available green space. And if in the future I don't know if they'll have to tear it down. I don't really know what they're doing with the green space since, in the 10-year plan, I didn't see it was removed. But if it comes to it that we have to work with maintenance, obviously we'll work with maintenance to, if it has to get demolished for whatever reason.
Are there any other questions? I'll go to Senator Basali.
Thank you. Well, it's a nice initiative. I was wondering if there was any metric developed in terms of how many students this can support per month. It's a big amount of land, so I'm wondering how much can you really benefit from it?
Yeah, so one, it would really depend on what you're growing. So right now with the community garden, how it stands is it's roughly 440 square meters. So we are more than 14 times increasing the size of the garden if we were to include this space. With that, in my proposal, I talk about allowing us to turn the Wallace Hall beds into space that would grow tomatoes and peppers, corn, squashes, stuff like that would otherwise take up valuable space in the community garden that we have at the Radigan Student Center. If we're to grow, for example, one bed could, at efficiency growing, we could maybe 6 to 8 plus tomato plants, but that also means we still have to prune. But if we were to just do like the one south bed of Wallace Hall, we could possibly plant over 100 tomato plants, as well as if we did corn, we could do rows of corn, squashes. So these beds will provide a lot of fresh produce that is exceptionally more than what we have at the current garden. In terms of actual metrics, I'm not sure, because it also just depends on how much maintenance we do to it, if we do all the correct pruning, if we ensure, I mean, if we did synthetic fertilizers, we'd obviously get more, but some of us are not life for that. So there are statistics, but we are increasing it by more than 14 times the current space.
Are there any further questions? I'll go to Senator Whalen.
Yeah, so you said that it would be increased by about 14 times compared to the current garden. To the specifics of that, like, do you know if the current garden is being used to like full capacity? Because I'm kind of wondering if we're going to actually be able to use like all 14 extra gardens we'd pretty much be putting in, or if, you know, only part of it might be getting used. I just hope it doesn't like turn into like overgrown by weeds that it isn't being used.
Yeah, so the current garden is used at full capacity as far as I'm aware. I've go by there every single day. It is used. In regards to weeds as well, the Wallace Hall beds actually are already covered in mulch, so that already provides us with a benefit towards not having to do as much weeding at the moment. And then also, I know that individual community or members of the community will go out and help do that. So, but the mulch is one of the biggest things in terms of weed. But we also don't have to use the beds to full capacity. We can use them as we have to. So if we also if we want to add stepping stones or something, right, to make it so it's easier to walk through. So with the 14 times space, yeah, it might not mean we use the whole space, but it's still showing that we have a lot more space. And it also allows for the future ideas. If this does stay as a space and it's not kind of like changed to a courtyard or whatever, since we don't know what the future plans are, that won't have an effect in this legislation. But we have the ability to grow a lot more produce now. That would otherwise take up very valuable space, because you can't grow tomatoes and lettuce in these beds. But if we were to do it out there, we could grow tomatoes and lettuce all in this one big bed right next to each other.
Are there any further questions? Senator Timms?
So I know that resolutions aren't binding, but assuming that this is adopted by the university, out of genuine curiosity, because this would cost money, where would this funding come from, and about how much would it cost to pursue this initiative?
So the funding would come from student government, but as I stated, as of the initial startup, we're not having to spend almost anything in regards to the installation of the water systems, because I believe we had to install the one for the Radigan Student Center, but there are already sprinklers in, as I said, in the below images on each bed. So we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about the soil, because there is already soil in these beds, which are used on a yearly basis. And then, as I mentioned, the mulch, so it's really the only biggest thing would be seeds, but the shocker, sport locker, and individuals from the community also, we have seeds. The only cost that would really I see being at the moment is if we bought pre-grown plants from, I'll just say Johnson's Garden Center, Menards, or Home Depot. Overall, I don't see there being as much of an initial cost in terms of the setup of the full beds.
Are there any other questions? I'll go to Senator Vaughn.
Hi again. So for this resolution, do you anticipate the need for signs or any other indication if the university were to implement this legislation to signify that this is now part of the community garden?
Yeah, so in the resolution, I do mention updating the interactive map concept 3D to show the clarification of a north bed, a west bed, and a north bed, a south bed, and a central bed. One, for clarification for the shock and sport locker, so if individuals need to go out there to harvest stuff, they can, one, know which beds. But then in the future, I will be proposing some signage so that we can make sure that, one, the beds have all their proper signage here as well. Here as in the RC, as well as Wallace Hall beds. So that would be a separate resolution, but that is not for this right now. This is just so that we can make sure that we get the beds.
Are there any other questions? I'll go to Senator Miller.
So I understand, I remember seeing us pass legislation some time ago about having an assistant for the community gardens. I'm unaware if the position is currently filled. Do you expect that that person would be delegated over this expansion of the community garden? And if so, do you anticipate that that will be reasonable for them?
So there's a bit of that, yes, and also, as I stated, I've spoken with members of the community who will come out and help with the community garden.
Are there any further questions? Oh, Senator Fawn.
So if the Wallace Hall beds were converted over to community garden, how do you anticipate that if the university did enact this legislation, how would jurisdiction work in those areas? If there were damage to the Wallace Hall beds, would that be under SJ's jurisdiction with what you're asking for in your resolution?
Could you also just expand on what damage could look like?
Senator Fawn.
So when I meant damage, let's say there was a storm or something and all the stuff in the beds were ruined, or there was some damage to the bed areas themselves as you walk over to Wallace Hall. It's more related to that.
Senator, good question. The current community garden is funded and managed by the student government, and so if there is current damage to the one we have outside the RSC, it will be on SGA to fund the cost to repair. I think one of the things that this resolution, and I'm glad that the senator mentioned it already, I think there's some tweaking that has to be done in recognition that the current garden and what I would imagine any future expansion of a garden is going to be funded and managed and continue to be held by student government. And so I would imagine that if the expansion in Wallace, then student government will be on the hook for any repairs and continue operation of that space, just like we are currently with the one outside of the RSC. And so I think my hope is before the next meeting, we'll have a conversation to be able to ensure that the language is highlighting that aspect of where it stands right now.
Also, to kind of expand on that, the difference between the Wallace beds and the beds outside the RSC, the Wallace beds are made of brick, so any damage would have to be really severe for them to damage it. The only real thing I guess I could see happening is a burst pipe if someone was digging and didn't ask maintenance first to map out where the pipes were, or there are windows by the bed, so obviously breaking glass. But in regards to the beds themselves, they're made of brick, so they've been there for a while. So I don't anticipate. I hope they don't break, because that'd also be a massive feat. So.
Are there any further questions? Senator Fawn.
This may be a question for the central office, but if the Wallace Hall beds were transferred over to the student government, would there be any agreement or contract or anything that has to be signed for that to be officially transferred over to be under SJ's jurisdiction?
We currently have an MOU with the first one, so I would imagine that we will continue to look at the same sentiment for any expansion to it.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Tonight was this item's first read. It will be brought back to the floor next week for a second read. We will now move into the next item, section 7, swearing in of the speaker. Will the speaker-elect please come to the podium? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Matthew Fawn,
Hereby swear
hereby swear
that I will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University,
that I will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University,
act in accordance with the Constitution of the student body,
act in accordance with the Constitution of the student body,
and fulfill all duties and responsibilities required of the office of the Speaker of the Student Senate,
and fulfill all duties and responsibilities required of the office of the Speaker of the Student Senate.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University.
the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University.
Congratulations. Speaker Fawn, you may now take the speaker's chair.
Thank you, Madam President and Senators. Before we move into Section 8 adjournment, we also need to do closing roll call. So we'll move into closing roll call.
You can go ahead and click whatever button you want on there.
Okay, before we move into adjournment, applications for Senate leadership are open, so within the next day or so, you will be receiving an email from me. Additionally, please keep an eye out for an email that I'll send out regarding the seating chart, a Senate information form as well. But with that, we will now move into Section 8 adjournment. The Student Government Association Senate will stay on adjournment until Wednesday, May 6th at 7:30 p.m. The meeting is adjourned at 7:44 p.m. And please don't take your clickers with you. Leave them on the table. Thank you.